right, let's get started on your back. So today we're just going to do a short lunchtime flow. So starting on your back, and I just want you to lay down and feel yourself relaxing into the mat. So we can lay our bodies down, but still be really tense, like we're still basically standing up in our bodies. But I want you to allow yourself to really lay down, to really surrender into the ground below you. So that maybe you can start to feel like your spine pressing in. Maybe you're releasing a little bit of tension through the low back or the upper back. Maybe you're just letting your head rest, letting your brain rest as well. So if you want, you can do what I'm doing, which is just taking my hands together, clasping my fingers together, and just resting my thumbs on the ground, elbows bent. So I can take a minute to breathe into my upper spine, feel my shoulder blades, and notice if they feel the same on both sides. Likely that they don't actually feel the same. And then we're just going to start to move the arms. So you're bringing the elbows down and then bringing the elbows back. So this can look different in different bodies. So basically, when you take my classes, what I want you to really learn is that what is happening in your body is more important than my cues or than what I'm doing. So if you're doing this exercise, for instance, and it feels like pretty good and you're not feeling too much, that's okay. You can stay doing that, or you can add in the straight arms overhead. Or if it's too much, you can do less. You can just breathe with your arms in one position. So my intent is to really allow you to feel what's happening in your body today. And I think that's kind of the beauty of online yoga, of practicing a yoga practice by yourself in your room, in your home, or wherever you are, is that there's less likelihood of comparison. So you're not looking around to see what your neighbors are doing. You're just feeling what you're doing. And that's kind of the basis of self-awareness, right? Is that we're becoming aware of our bodies. We're becoming aware of what is happening. Are we holding tension and we didn't even realize it? Or are we unable to let go of certain body parts? So we're going to change the arm position a bit. Hands still clasped together, palms facing the ceiling. Check in with the back of your neck. So I don't want to cue you to lengthen the back of your neck, because the back of our necks need to have a curve. That's how they're built. So we're going to feel the curve in the back of the neck, feel the curve in the upper spine, feel the curve of the lower back. So the way that our spine curves is created perfectly so that we can stand up straight and the load is dispersed. So we know that an oval shape is a very strong shape, right? Like that oval shape is very strong, can withstand a lot of pressure. But something that's completely straight is not as strong. Okay, so palms up, and we're going to start to lift the shoulder blades up, place them back down on the ground. So we're lifting them off the ground and bringing them back down to the ground. So this can be done with a lot of tension and a lot of bracing and a lot of other stuff happening, or it can be done in a relaxed manner with ease. So notice what your tendency is. Are you someone who wants to use every little bit you've got to lift your shoulders up? Or are you someone who can just move the blades? So notice that. And then ask yourself, are you someone who is comfortable in a state of ease, or are you someone who's thrives in a state of chaos? Can't think of a better word right now, but so notice these things. We're going to start to take the arms overhead and back, and I want you to stop when you feel like you've had enough. So if that's here or here or here, wherever that is, we're going to try not to move into pain or not to move into the deepest sensation. So by the deepest sensation, I mean we don't always have to go right to our edges and right to the most extreme version of the movement. So I'm telling you this now in a laying relatively easy position, so that when you get to a standing position that's more challenging, you know that you don't have to go into a state of like the absolute edge of your tolerance. It's okay to hang out in a place that feels nourishing and easeful. Okay, so now let's just hug our shoulder blades, and we're going to start to roll the rib cage side to side. I love to do all kinds of movement of the upper spine. I can feel my spine kind of cracking a little bit as I do this. Okay. And then I'm just going to roll over onto my side and come up onto my knee. All right. Coming onto the knees. I'm going to take off my slippers because I want to come up to standing soon. And I'm going to rock forward and back. So I'm going to really rock far all the way back and all the way forward. So I want you to pay attention to your shoulder blades, how they move on your back, to your low back. So as you come forward, let your shoulder blades sink in, let your heart press forward so that this weight is not coming into the low back. So you're not dumping everything into your low back. Instead, you're letting your upper back mold to the movement. So we're inviting mobility into the upper spine, not dumping in to the lower spine. So I invite you to take a moment and to really feel into this movement. So if you've got a grouchy low back and you come here and it doesn't feel good, then I want you to stay farther back and just move the shoulder blades. Okay? So we're inviting mobility into the upper spine, which is not dumping into the low back. So if our upper spine is really tight and immobile, then your body will just naturally go to the most flexible place, which is the lumbar spine, which gets a lot of abuse when we do back bends. Okay. So that's probably enough there. And then we're going to do cat and cow, lots of movement of the spine today. So turn the tailbone, lift the spine, let the head rest, separate the shoulder blades, and then reverse that. Sink the heart down, gaze up. So I want you to think about how the spine moves bit by bit, all the way up, all the way down. Okay. This next one is called serpentine, and I absolutely love this pose. And it's not something that I actually do a ton because I always forget about it, but I'm going to do it today. So basically what you do is you think about how you can roll from like your forehead to the crown of your head. The crown of your head being the very top. So we'll see how this goes with a big ponytail on top of my head. But basically I'm going to start here, relaxing the upper spine, and then I'm going to roll onto my shoulder, onto the crown of my head, rounding my back, separating my shoulder blades, and then roll back and soften and sink. I have a tiny vertebrae digging into my forehead now. I'm going to tuck that away. Okay, I'm going to start over. Roll up, roll down, Roll up, roll down, soften the upper spine. So most of us probably have some tension in our upper spines. And maybe we're also feeling some lower back tension. So as I talked about before, if the upper spine is tight, the low back gets the brunt of it when we move our bodies. Low back takes it all because it's generally the most flexible place in our spine. It definitely is the most flexible place. So we really want to nurture this flexibility of the upper spine. So from bottom of your breastbone on the other side, T12 all the way up, T7. This is the upper spine. And I believe that with a lot of like attention and breath and softness, we can start to change our entire posture and the way we feel in our bodies. So now we're going to come up to standing. So one of the other parts of a tight upper spine is sometimes our legs and bum aren't working as they need to in order to keep us upright. So it's like our upper body is clenching to keep us upright. It's like we're a marionette puppet and our body's like, okay, we got it. We're going to hold ourselves up. But if your legs can hold you and you trust that your legs are strong, then your upper body can naturally let go. So there's a lot of things that are at play when we have a really tight upper spine. Okay. And one thing I've noticed lately working with people is that, I don't have a wall here, is that a lot of us have legs and bums that aren't super strong, especially bums. So lots of people have bums that are not very active. That can lead to all kinds of different wonderful things. But my intention is not to make you feel like you're doing something wrong, but rather to make you feel like you've got, what the heck's back here? My broom. You've got some control. Your body can change given the right Christmas dad, the right stimulus. You can start to change your movement patterns and start to feel better. It's fabulous. All right. So I'm standing against the wall. I've got about like 16 inches between my wall and my heel, and the standing leg, and then my other foot is back on the wall or the stud behind me. So now I'm going to press my heel back. My knees are pretty flush, and then I'm going to start to cross my leg out to the side. So right now I'm feeling this in my bum and the joint. Don't want to feel it in the low back. So if you're someone that gets everything goes into your low back, then you're going to skip this part. We're going to try it a different way. So you can probably hear my dog who thinks that he runs the neighborhood. I apologize. He gets a bit excited when people walk by. The joy of teaching from home. Okay, so I'm just holding this here. I'm feeling that joint, and it feels like the joint is going right in, like the leg bone is going right into the hip socket. And it feels pretty strong. So now I'm going to bring it back down and then move in and out a few times. So as I do this, I want to ensure that I'm not dumping into the low back. Oh, shut up, Bodhi. I'm just moving the leg. Frick. Please hold. Okay. Now, that was the one side. So we'll do that for like 1 to 2 minutes, as long as you're not feeling your low back, and then we'll do the other side. So same thing, find your balance. So you're just shifting the weight onto the other side, not shifting the hips. Okay, we've talked about this in lots of my other classes. Flush the knees, press the heel back, lift the knee out to the side. So we're getting right into that joint, and it's as though the leg bone is really pressing into the pelvis now. The connection is good. My dog is still barking. So it's also interesting to notice if one side feels more sticky than the other, or one side feels easier or stronger. It's good information to know about ourselves. And then I'm going to bring the knee back in and then move in and out a few times. So these exercises are really important for me because I have a history of hip pain because of having kids and carrying them around for so long. And I have found that these exercises, along with all the breath work and all the movement I do in different planes, has basically made my hip pain go away. So I know that if I stopped moving and I stopped doing these breath practices and I stopped doing these leg, like all this yoga that I do, I know it would come back. So that's why movement is like medicine. Our bodies are made to move and we need to move all the time. Okay, in lots of different ways. So let's take the feet slightly wider than hip width. We're going to bring the hands up overhead. So you have a choice here if you want to grab your arm or if you just want to have your hands apart. Even a strap is really nice. I actually have a strap right here. So with the arms up and the strap up, I'm going to double up my strap. I'm going to start to pour the ribcage out, side to side movement. So I'm going to turn to the side just so you can see. So when I go to the side, I'm just trying to stay in this frontal plane. I don't want to deviate and twist and then go. This is an exaggeration, but I see this a lot when people are doing side bend. They're kind of actually doing more of a twist. So see if you can keep your shoulders and your hips on the same plane and you're just tipping to the side. And whenever you feel like you're deviating, like your rib cage starts to turn or your hips start to turn, then stop. And just move in the range where you're not deviating out of that plane. And also notice as you pour the weight or you pour the rib cage out to the side, you might feel like you're taking a bit more weight into that leg on the same side. So again, my hope is that you can start to notice these little patterns in your own body. And sometimes you notice all these patterns and you're like, great, I know all these things about my body, now what? And it doesn't click. So if that's the case, then we can always book a little session. So I do 30-minute consultations for free, and then we can do like 5-week session or 6-week session. I'm working on a 12-week program as well. So just to help people move better. When you move better, you feel better. All right, so let's do a bit of standing work. So again, we're strengthening the legs and the bum here, just like the last one. So I'm going to take the front leg, knee bent, hands on the pelvis, and I'm going to start to move my pelvis on the leg bone. So I'm pouring my pelvis forward, tailbone lifts, and then I'm pouring it back. Okay, so the way that our bodies need to move, there's some connections that I've made throughout the years, and there's things that need to happen in order for our bodies to be moving optimally. Okay, I talk about these connections and relationships all the time in my classes, but this one, basically, pelvis on leg bones. Okay, so if you're familiar with, let's say, this one where you lean back and people are going into a back bend here. So maybe you've done this one in class. So you're like, it's like an exalted warrior, or I don't even know what the hell it's called, but you're lifting your arms back. And I know when I look around classes, I see that people are jamming up into their low backs, and that makes my heart hurt. So instead of feeling this in your low back, you're gonna feel it in your upper back. Okay, so you're gonna take your pelvis back, move from the pelvis, and then just lift up and float back into this. So there is a sense of like length through the upper body from the pubic bone up to the collarbones. There's a sense of opening there, but there's not a sense of dumping into the back. So let's try that again. We're taking the pelvis forward. There's a bit more weight coming into the forward leg. And then we're taking the pelvis back. Okay, back, 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 back. If your pelvis doesn't move a lot, that's okay. Because if you practice, it starts to loosen up. and then arms up. So there's no way that we ever need to go into like an extreme position because our neighbor beside us is doing it. Okay, hands to pelvis. Again, pelvis moves on leg bones. So I feel sometimes we get a little bit lost in yoga practice. Sometimes it goes very quickly. We're looking around the room, we're trying to follow what everyone's doing, and we're ignoring what's happening in our own body. And believe me, I've been there. I've been there myself, and I've witnessed it as a teacher and as a student. Okay, so now I'm going to lift my arms. Back, back, back. Arms lift. So there doesn't need to be this thrusting of the rib cage or anything crazy like that. It's just this lifting, this gentle, like floating up, opening through the front of the body. And it feels so much more supportive than this extended, dump it all into your low back. Like, it's like an attaining of a certain aesthetic that who gives a shit? It's not about what the pose looks like. It's about what you feel when you're in the pose. If you feel like you can't breathe and you just can't wait for it to be over, then maybe it's too much. What a thought. Okay, let's come back. Other side. So we're going to move the pelvis because we're good at that now. We know how the pelvis moves on the leg bone, and then we're going to lift the back leg up and down. And we'll just do that a few times. Not the leg, sorry, rather the heel. Heel's lifting up. So hopefully you're feeling this in the bum, not the low back. So if you're feeling it in the low back, I would encourage you to come back up. Try again moving your pelvis and stop when your pelvis stops moving. So if you get to here and that is where you are and your pelvis is not moving forward anymore, then stay there. So the idea, again, is not to move into your like some particular attainment of the pose, but to unravel what's inside the pose, what you're feeling when you're in the pose. Okay, so this is going to take us into a balancing pose. I'm just going to back up because I don't want to bang my head on the wall. I have a limited space here. Okay, so my pelvis is forward. I'm going to take the weight onto the standing leg and then just keep tipping. So when we are moving well, our pelvis is moving on the leg bones and we're not jamming up in the low back, we can really start to feel that strength building through the leg and bum. Okay, other side. So I just encourage you to reset and feel what's going on. If you're getting tension building up in the shoulders, that's also a really great thing. There's a lot of information there for you. Okay, tip forward. So we're going to do this a few times. Just two. And then lift up, straighten out, tip forward again. This side is definitely more challenging for me. So I like to have a little bit of support. So I do this in the kitchen and I just use the counter for support. I can't go quite as far, but I can still feel that strength in the leg and bum and that awareness. So I know that my legs are getting stronger, even though I'm not going quite as deep on this side. It doesn't matter because it's about what the pose feels like, not what it looks like. Okay. Awesome. So now hopefully you're feeling something in your legs and bum. And that way, as I said before, you can allow your legs to hold you up. So the rest of your body is just relaxed. It doesn't need to hold you up. Okay. I can't think of anything else. Oh, I do know something. Okay. The last movement we're going to do is a twist. So if you have a band, that's great. You don't need it though. So let's see what we can do here. I'm just going to stand feet hip width apart, legs up, arms up rather, holding the strap. I'm going to take my right arm forward and I'm going to start to pull the arm down towards the pelvis. And then I'm going to turn the upper spine. So I'm moving into a twist but my legs and hips are still looking forward. My shoulders and heart are looking to the side. Okay? And then back up. Let's do that a few times. So pull down, turn the rib cage and the shoulders and the heart to the side. And back up. Last time. Pull down, turn the heart, and back up. You can certainly do this without a strap, but I like the extra feedback that it provides. Okay, so I'm going to take my hand forward and I'm going to pull it straight down towards my hip and then rotate the rib cage and pull back. So I've got this great tension between my arms, lots of feedback as to how much my rib cage can move, which is surprisingly a lot more than it used to be able to move. So if you think about how we walk, just a basic exercise like walking, there needs to be a certain amount of movement through the rib cage as we walk, right? There needs to be some movement. And this relationship or connection is rib cage. So picture your rib cage, your breastbone, your upper spine, all those ribs attaching onto the spine, attaching onto the breastbone. So that rib cage in relation to the pelvis, okay? So they can certainly move together, right? Can move together, or they can move independently of each other. Okay, so pelvis is stable and the rib cage is moving. What's driving this is not my arms or shoulders, but the deep core muscles are helping to move this. Muscles along the spine. Okay, so we've got leg strengthening, releasing the upper spine with breath and mobility exercises that we covered. We've got side bends, staying in the plane, and we've got twists. So 4 things that you can work on in every day. Do a little bit every day. If you wake up and you feel a bit weird, get down on the floor, do some movement of your spine, do a side bend, do a twist. Anytime you have a chance, think about strengthening through the legs and bum while relaxing the upper body. So that is all I have for you today. And if you have questions, I encourage you to email me and let's figure them out together. So you don't have to do it on your own. Goodbye.